So here are three important lessons that I want to talk about. That it really baffles me that some people don't see them. Now, I'm gonna refer. Excuse me. I'm gonna. This is embarrassing. I've actually lost my train of thoughts again. Am I getting demented or something? Maybe. I'm gonna start from the beginning and say that I read an article featuring 6 interviews of millionaires, respectively, and people who are wealthy. And in that interview, there were so many golden nuggets that these millionaires and wealthy people would drop to the journalist. But she seemed incomprehensible. Excuse me, she seemed unable to comprehend them. She didn't seem to manage to properly parse the information and process it and twist and turn it into the actual lessons that were given. Because as anybody knows, these people are wealthy, they don't have much time, and they won't share every part of information with you, but they're more than happy to share the thought idea behind, or their train of thoughts, and also their philosophy, which is really what matters. So, like I said, I'm referencing an article featuring an interview of 6 millionaires or 6 wealthy business people. Two of those people said something that was really interesting, which the journalist clearly fail to understand. Here are the lessons. The first guy said 2 things that were important, and then there was I think it was the 4th or the 5th guy who actually said one important thing that the journalist, for whatever reason, just seemed to dismiss like some unimportant trifle that didn't matter. So the first guy said 2 things, or information about him was given in 2 separate brackets. One, he was appointed the best strawberry salesman in his local town, I think, in 1974. And number 2, if you spend $10 a day on coffee and in the cafeteria at your job, that amounts up to $3,650 per year. That's money you could have invested instead. Now let's talk about that. Let's talk about the strawberry salesman. Interestingly enough, this chap runs a hotel chain that's called Strawberry. Maybe that's because he was selling strawberries and he began to do so. I don't really know. But here's the point. Yeah, sure. So he was appointed the best strawberry salesman of his town, in some year. That's fine. And no, that wasn't what made him rich. But it probably was where he was taught a lot of his sales lessons, such as persuasion, such as influence, such as perseverance, and managing to connect with people, managing to sell somebody a basket of strawberries, which he then could use in other cases, such as negotiations, business deals, maybe court negotiations, because I know he's been to court a lot of times. Sometimes he's lost, sometimes he's won, etc., etc. And you mean to tell me that doesn't matter at all? Of course it does. This is the start of that was probably the start of his entrepreneurial journey. And then number 2, let's talk about those $10 you're spending every single day on coffee and in the cafeteria at your job. No, you're not going to get rich by saving $10 a day, but that's not the point. The point is, eliminate all of these unnecessary expenses that you don't really need. Increase your earnings, and the proceeds from your earnings after you've paid all of your expenses, you invest into appreciating assets, such as, for instance, real estate or stocks and bonds, maybe crypto, maybe art. I don't know. No, this is not financial advice. I'm just talking out of my ass. But that's the point. I mean, don't you see that? But you have to begin with all the small habits. because that's where it starts. And again, that's not the $10 you manage to save a day. Now, if you make $20 and you want to spend 10 of them on coffee and in the cafeteria, fine. But if you could make $50 instead, that will leave $40 $40 that you could invest in an appreciating asset and still enjoy those $10 on coffee and in the cafeteria. That's the point. I mean, don't you see that? Anybody with half a brain sees that. These are just basic business essentials. And this journalist had the nerve to write some dumb sentence about, oh yeah, well, you're not getting rich by investing $10 a day, so just breathe, relax, and remember to live life. I was just baffled when I read this. I mean, who's writing this piece of crap? Some moron. It almost seemed like this journalist deliberately wanted to prevent the average NPC from understanding what the millionaire was really preaching here. It was actually a bit daunting, to be honest. And the third and final lesson from the fourth or fifth guy was how this fella, who now owns bars and restaurants and makes money from that, in the beginning needed to rent some space that was owned by some hotel chain. And in order to be able to be eligible for renting that space where he wanted to open a bar, he needed to ask the hotel owner for permission. So he went a grand total of 17 times before the CEO of the hotel finally said yes. He went past the receptionist, the gatekeeper, took the elevator up to the 8th floor 16 times. He refused to take no for an answer. And then on the 17th time, they said yes, finally. Then he opened it and he said he had something along the lines of $10 or less left in his pocket on the day of opening. But, this day he's running a very, very profitable outdoors company. Or, what's the term I'm looking for here? Like a clubbing or bar company. I don't really know what it is. The point is, he refused to take no for a no. And he persevered. And if you can persevere as well, then Lady Luck has an odd habit of rewarding those who persevere and who don't take no for an answer, who refuse to give up. And so that's the important lesson. And I think this fella even went as far as saying as that if he'd just given up after 16 times, he'd still be in his worn down apartment, not being able to make rent, making little money, etc., etc. But he refused to give up. He actually kept on working. And so these are all these sort of like hidden knowledge lessons that this journalist clearly refused, or, well, it felt like she refused to pick him up. And yet I managed to see him there. And everybody who's rich probably manages to see them as well. And so the point is, if you manage to read, or if you manage to get access to somebody who's wealthy, then listen to what they're really saying. In the hotel owner's case, it wasn't so much about you have to save $10 a day, then you'll be rich. It wasn't that. It was about investing what you have, your proceeds, and slashing unnecessary expenses. The $10 in coffee a day was just an example. And I wouldn't stop spending $10 a day on coffee because I enjoy coffee. Instead, I'm gonna make more money so that I can actually afford, with good margin, to keep on keep on spending the $10 a day. And also, the lessons you learn from selling. I've been open about how I learned a lot of sales lessons from selling waffles a summer. at some tourist attraction in my hometown. I learned a lot of lessons, especially about positioning. That rainy day when I was inside a shack all day and there were only 3 clients because I didn't have any sign that said "buy waffles here," as opposed to a sunny day when I could stand outside and I was clearly visible and I positioned myself in the track where the tourists walk by. Of course, that meant way more sales. I mean, it's obvious, but I didn't think about that then. Now it's so obvious. Place yourself where your customers are. And then finally, not taking no for an answer. The guy who now runs a clubbing and restaurant chain company, whatever it is, I already didn't remember, refused to give up. And these are so valuable lessons. And yet this journalist sort of just dismisses them and concludes that, oh, well, we're not all meant to be rich. What moron is writing that piece of crap, really? I'll end on that. And I'll also end on saying, if you want to learn more about building a business, learning sales and persuasion, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching or listening to this. And I'll see you there.